All right, this is James Thornock. Welcome to the Coder Kids podcast, episode 17. We're super excited today to talk about coding resources for ages 9 through 12. Jeff is my co-host. He's the founder of Coder Kids, and he's pretty awesome. So what's the personal update on your life, Jeff?
Well, before you jump into personal update, I just have to say I did change it from ages 9 to 12 to ages 9 through 14.
Ooh, all right,
So
updated.
that's a little mix up.
Okay, sounds good. If you're 13 years old, you're safe.
I just think older kids, yeah, I mean, maybe we'll talk about it, but older kids like the same things. It's pretty much like through middle school, right? Okay, so personal update. Man, I guess I'm a little bit on the spot here. The home reno is coming all right. Oh, here's the thing I was going to say. I actually did think about this beforehand. Wednesday, as you may know, was Veterans Day.
Yeah.
And I went to work out on Wednesday not knowing that it was Veterans Day. But like in the CrossFit community, Veterans Day is like a big, the military things are like kind of a big deal. So I show up and we have these things called Warrior Wads. And it was like, it just like completely trashed me. So, thank you to the veterans out there, and did a hard workout in your honor. Although, I am admitting, I mean, I understand that they did something much more challenging, but, got to make a small sacrifice, I guess. So that was like the day, though. It was like I was walking out and I was like, man, I did not know today was Veterans Day. That was really tough.
Oh, so. Man, that's intense. That just makes me tired just hearing about it. I power washed the driveway for 4 hours straight. That was fun.
Wow, 4 hours on the driveway.
It was only 72 degrees, so it wasn't like hot or anything. So it was pretty nice, but
is it nice and clean now?
Yeah, it's looking great. And there's a nice white and black line with my neighbor now. That's where he's not power washed. For those of you who live in humid areas, you got this thing called gliopastomagma, aka blue-green algae, and it turns everything black. Roofs and sidewalks and highway overpasses and anything that touches the air. So it's harmless, but it just looks so good.
Might have to do some power washing in the springtime, even though I don't have glioblastoma or whatever.
Gliopastomagma, yeah. Anyway, that's the scientific name. Well, the update for me is my office keeps getting better, so I just ordered these like colorful sound panels. They're like giant hexagons. Oh, cool. So,
let me know how they work, because
if I do this, I probably sound better and less echoey. Anyway, so I'm gonna be putting them up, and hopefully there will be like less echo in this room, like at least a little bit. I bought like 24 of these hexagons, and as you know, if you've watched CGP Grey, hexagons are the bestagons. And if you don't know what that means, look up that YouTube video. Shout out to CGP Grey. It's great content.
Come on our show sometime, CBG Grey.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great.
That'd be great.
Yeah. I mean, I think we can jump into it then.
Let's jump in. Got some good stuff to talk about today, but James and I are also dedicated to making this a shorter show. We've got some stuff going on in the biz.
That's right.
We got to get to work. We're trying to create some on-demand videos for Coder Kids.
Yeah.
Which is like not always top priority. Why is my camera? Man, my camera's.
I know, it's like
my camera's autofocus. I think it's the lighting. I think I just need like. I think the lighting's just not.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah, because it's not even focused on anything in the picture. So.
Right, exactly.
That is so strange. Okay, it's coming in. It's coming in. I can see you.
I know.
Okay.
See, I think it is lighting. It's just. Then I have these shadows. For today, I'm going to keep the shadows so you can enjoy my beautiful face. Don't judge me with the shadows if you're on YouTube.
Like Jordan Peterson says, you got to incorporate the shadow into your identity, or Jung, rather. Anyway,
it's beautiful. All right, let's dive into this. So, resources for 9 to 14-year-olds. All right, so we're talking about kids who are in, let's say, roughly speaking, 5th grade through middle school. Okay.
That's right.
4th to 5th grade through middle school. Now, the first note that we're going to separate this a little bit into hardware and software. So this is for kids who are into coding, who are into gaming, who are into technology, maybe into engineering. All of those things kind of go hand in hand. Although you don't necessarily have to be a gamer to be, into coding or engineering. But we're kind of gonna break down some of this stuff. So we're going to start out with a topic that we've talked about before, and we're going to talk about this briefly because we do have some shows in the past where we talked about laptops and desktops.
Yeah.
And would highly recommend that you go back and listen to those if you are considering building a desktop or buying a laptop, because we kind of went into those topics in depth. But I guess the reason I wrote laptops and desktops is because in my mind, ages 9 to 14 is, in my opinion, where kids should start kind of stepping away from just tablet life and should really start stepping into like computer life. And so that's kind of my logic there. Not to say you couldn't have your kids have a Chromebook before that or whatever. And certainly lots of kids, I think there's utility in having them get exposure to using a mouse and using a keyboard and things. But I think in terms of like the mental capacity to like do typing and manage all the things on the screen, you're probably looking at about that age. And so definitely a time for them to consider getting them a laptop or a desktop.
Yeah, I'd highly recommend it. We got 2 different podcasts on that, and I just had mom ask me this morning, like, what laptop or desktop would be good for playing Fortnite and Minecraft, right? And so hopefully steered her in the right direction. But I know that's a big question that we get often.
We've also got some blog posts about it.
Yep.
So.
A lot of content out there.
Let's keep going. Let's talk about, James, maybe you can dive into this. Let's talk about some of these like actual like hardware tools that you could buy your child. Great Christmas gift, Christmas coming up. But also, also a great thing for any time of the year for kids who are curious and like to build. So.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's talk about, obviously, so laptops, desktops, those are going to be great. A classic one is Arduino. I'll just kind of list them all and then we can kind of dive in kind of one by one. But Arduinos are great, just the amount of projects that you can do. Raspberry Pi is similarly. Makey Makey, that's, we'll go into that. It's kind of like a game controller that you can customize. Microbit is made by the British government, BBC. That one, they just released a version 2. So lots of cool stuff there. Anything that kind of allows for tinkering. I guess you could include probably AutoCAD software and Blender and stuff like that as well.
Those are software tools.
Those are software.
Section 2.
Jumping ahead, robotics, Lego Mindstorm, although they haven't updated their line in a long time. And I think there's some competitors out there. And then, of course, our personal partner, ImagiCharm. Reach over here, show the camera. Oh, you can't see it because the green line is
you can kind of see it, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the actual thing, this is what it actually looks like. It's kind of bright, but this little display lights up, and you can program it with Python. So, lots of cool things. I mean, I think I'm just gonna play favorites.
Let's talk a little bit about Arduino because I've got a little bit of experience there.
Yeah, why don't you talk about that?
The cool thing about Arduino is it's basically a micro computer, a micro controller, I believe they call it, which is actually exactly the same as the Microbit, but the Arduino is larger and has more. And I mean, the Raspberry Pi. Okay, so I'll just kind of break it down from my understanding. Mm-hmm. Arduino has a lot of you can do a lot of electrical things with Arduino. It's got electrical ports. It's got you can do wiring, so you can do wiring to different sensors. You can do different automations of tasks. You can do hooking up electrical components to it. So a lot of people use Arduino for a lot of different things. It could be like, I would say the main thing is like automation of tasks. So you could create a thing that opens your garage door using Arduino. You could create something that feeds your fish using Arduino. Again, it's just a microcontroller. So it's like you can control a whole variety of electrical processes through the Arduino. And the Arduino also has a coding language that comes with it that you program it in C. And there might be some flexibility there, but one thing I'll say about the Arduino product is that there is a huge community for it. Excuse me. There's a huge community for it. There's a million different projects you can build with Arduino, and really the sky's the limit. As a matter of fact, James, I'm going to pass it off to you for just a second.
Sure.
To talk about maybe one of your favorites, and then I'm going to pull up the Arduino website, just like give you, like one of the websites.
I mean, I have the stats up that kind of compares Arduino and Raspberry Pi. But
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I have a friend who rigged an Arduino, I believe, to open his garage door with a smartphone. So he just like wrote a script and set it up, and literally was able to open his garage door from his smartphone. Now, he didn't have like a quote unquote smart garage door, but that was probably the coolest one that I know. I thought that was pretty neat.
I've seen like a wide variety. Opening the garage door is certainly one of them, but I'm looking on here right now. Like, people have created Sudoku games with the Arduino, neon signs.
Oh, there's a bunch. One.
I guess because Halloween just happened, like people are doing a lot of Halloween-based projects, like to motion sensors and things. If somebody walks up, like jump out at you. So
yeah, there was one I heard about had a motion and temperature sensor. So it really just depends on what sensors you plug into it to see to give it kind of whatever abilities. But this one had temperature and a motion sensor, and so they put it in their dryer, and it was Wi-Fi connected. And so what happened was when the heat of the dryer basically went down to like when the movement stopped, it sent a notification, then it gave another notification when the temperature fell below a certain amount, because that meant it wasn't heating the clothes anymore. So, I mean, some pretty cool stuff, some useful stuff, and some completely just not useful but fun stuff, right? So it can kind of do all of that.
Well, and what I was going to say regarding the primary difference from my understanding is that on Arduino, and I don't know the technical difference, unfortunately, but on Arduino, you are not running a full operating system. But on the Raspberry Pi, you can run a full operating system. So yeah, the Raspberry Pi, like, you actually have to like plug it into the wall, whereas the Arduino, typically you'll just plug it into the computer. So it's a little more like computer dependent. Whereas the Raspberry Pi, you can do a lot of things with it, but it's like completely independent. Like, it is its own computer, whereas the Arduino is only a controller. So yeah, James is in thought, I guess.
I'm definitely in thought. Yeah, no, I have some comparisons here. This is from Tom's Hardware, so you can check this out. But basically, kind of a comparison. Raspberry Pi can do a lot of the same projects, but it does requiring using an operating system. Now, it does have the resources to be able to run an operating system. So there are 4 different Raspberry Pis out. I think 5 actually, technically, because there's a Raspberry Pi Zero. So they sell the Pi Zero W. You can buy it for $5. That's kind of the crazy thing about the Pi Zero. You can literally buy that for $5.
The Arduino is going to cost you closer to like 70.
Well, okay. Well, I'll break down the price.
40 maybe. Okay.
The Arduino Uno is only $23.
Just the board, though.
Just the board.
Just the board. And honestly,
to do any of these,
you can't do much without circuits or a kit of some variety.
No, you need to buy sensors. You might need to buy a battery. Like all of those individual parts cost money. But the nice thing is like you can buy the parts for the job, and you don't have to like. But and also like on Amazon and eBay and other places you can buy like kits. So like if you want like an Ethernet kit or you want this kind of kit, then you can buy those kits for specific projects. But like as far as the board itself, the latest Raspberry Pi costs $35. Or no. The Raspberry Pi 4 starts at 35, and then the Arduino Portenta H7, I don't know if that's how you say it, Portenta, starts at $101.88. So not cheap for that one.
Yeah.
And then the Arduino Uno is at 23. Now the amount of, I think this is pretty interesting. You have the amount of RAM that they have on them. The Arduino Uno is 2 kilobytes of SRAM, so it's like almost non-existent.
Which is why you can't run a operating system on it.
Yeah, no, you can't. But the Raspberry Pi 4 has either 1 to 8 gigs, so that's considerable. I mean, there are laptops that are coming out with 8 gigs of RAM right now. So, and you know,
yeah, and I'm looking on the Raspberry Pi website right now. One thing I'll say that I've played with in the past. They have these things for the Raspberry Pi called Pi hats, and Arduino also has like little components that you can buy. But the Pi hats are a lot of fun because you basically just like pop it on top of the Raspberry Pi, and we had one that had LED lights. And so, I mean, I'm just looking right here. There's a Pi TV hat, so you can receive TV streams. Like I said, the Sense hat is the one that I played with before. It's got a row of, I believe, 8x8 LED lights, so you can code that in Scratch, and then you can also, there's a bunch of other sensors as well. So we'll kind of leave it here, but I think the point is that both Arduino and Raspberry Pi and the other ones we're about to mention are really interesting things. They can be a little bit pricey depending on your budget, but they're really cool in terms of like tinkering.
Yeah. Because
kids these days, generally speaking, like back when I was a kid, we used to say like, oh, let's open up a computer, like a desktop computer, and let's like tinker around in there. These days, the way that you tinker is essentially like, I mean, you could still open a desktop for sure, but there's just a huge community and a ton of projects for Arduino and Raspberry Pi. So highly recommend checking those out if you have a kid who is kind of into technical tinkering.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's back it up a little bit and let's talk about Makey Makey, which is like, kind of more, I think there's compatibility with a lot of different interfaces, but we primarily use it with Scratch, and it's is a great thing for this age, but also possibly even drifts into the younger category as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it has a lot of cool applications. Yeah, so Makey Makey is, I feel like I'm trying to figure out like how to summarize it. It's a circuit board, and it looks like a Nintendo Entertainment System controller, like a NES controller. And it's got like a cross on the left side, like a directional pad, and then it's got like 2 buttons on the right side, but they're not buttons. They're, it's metal. And so, and they're holes for alligator clips. And, how do you explain alligator clips? There's just a little clip that you can clip in that connects wires. I guess the biggest example of alligator clips would be for your car battery. When you're trying to jump a car, those are technically alligator clips, right? Because they're carrying a signal.
Much bigger than the Microbit or the Makey Makey.
Right. So, and then you could plug those into like bananas and oranges and Play-Doh and onto your own skin.
It has to be anything that is
conductive,
energy conductive. And so what a lot of people will do then is, and you can look up Makey Makey projects as well. if you just Google that. But you know, like I've seen guitars made where basically they take the alligator clip from the controller and then they hook it into copper wiring, or copper tape is what it is. It's basically just a conductive source, a conductive metal. You connect the alligator clip to that, and then you basically just hide the Makey Makey like behind the guitar, and you can like press. This is like a fake guitar, right? It's like a paper, made out of paper or cardboard. Anyway, you can like press the copper buttons to make it then communicate with Scratch, and it'll like make noises in Scratch, like you're playing a guitar. So you can have a physical guitar with you, and you can like play songs on a fake guitar and still have it basically communicate with Scratch. And like, so there's a number of applications you can do. I mean, the guitar is one, but you know, I've seen people creating full-fledged games where they have a bunch of different things around the room, and you have to, you know, run around and touch the different objects and make the game in Scratch do something else. So it's really like sky's the limit on Makey Makey. People have created some really cool things. I will say, I don't know if it was Microbit or Makey Makey. There is some crossover there. But when I was at the Scratch convention in Boston, someone created a really cool game where like basically...
Well, you can use both at the same time, technically. So
yeah. And to row the boat, you had to keep jumping up and down.
That was Microbit. You told me
okay.
like a year or two ago. I remember.
Yeah. To row, you had to keep jumping up and down, and you had to like escape from the river monster. And so you had to keep jumping up and down, but then when the river monster got too close and like was about to attack you, you had to like basically stop jumping and go over and like hit a button on the side and like whack the monster. And then once the monster had kind of like receded a little bit, then you had to get back to jumping. So it's just like a fun little game where I feel like you can use these kind of, I don't know, there must be a professional term for them, but you know, like physical, like basically mixing the physical and the hardware and the software in a way that makes it for really, really fun, really cool projects.
Yeah.
And I will say, like, Arduino and Raspberry Pi, we were talking about those, a little more technical. You can still certainly be creative in what you decide to create, especially if you're really good at it. Makey Makey and Microbit, though, I think are just excellent tools for like creativity, where you don't have to like be highly technical to be creative. So if you have someone who like loves coding and loves creativity, then I think Makey Makey and Microbit are awesome. If you have someone who like leans a little more toward like coding and technical, then I'd probably go Arduino and Raspberry Pi. So,
or all of the above. Yeah. So one of the things
all of the above. Yeah. Step by step.
So Microbit has, you know, in comparison, it has tilt sensors. So it can tell if you're tilting it forward or back, left or right. It can also, there's an A and a B button. So there's like a little button on it. It also has a 5x5 LED screen so that you can animate things on the top of that as well. And I'm trying to think, what does the new version have that the old version? I think it has speakers on it, if I'm not mistaken. So I think like you can, yeah, that's right. You can actually play like sounds.
Yeah, I got the email, but I haven't really looked.
Yeah.
It just came, the new Microbit just came out.
Like 2 weeks ago or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's,
I wonder, it might even be sold out for Christmas. We'll see.
Oh yeah. You know, I bet. Yeah, it says to Microbit 2 inputs and outputs here. We'll put links in the description. But
Oh yeah,
okay.
do you want to talk briefly about ImagiCharm?
Yeah, sure. So this little device here, you know, for those of you who can't see it, man, I don't know if I'm good with inches. It's like two inches square, basically, or 1.5. It's got like rounded corners. It's got like a silicone sleeve. But the real key here is you turn this sucker on, and when you turn it on, it will light up, and its eyes will kind of animate, and it will it connects to your phone as a Bluetooth device. And on your phone, it's specifically designed to code with your phone via Bluetooth. And you can code, it's specifically targeted at girls in middle school and high school. And, but technically any age could theoretically do it. And they figure, everybody has a phone. So the app is from ImagiLabs. It's the ImagiCharm app. And that's free to download. So that's actually a free resource. You can learn Python and code the designs in this 8x8 grid of LEDs that are like rainbow pattern. You can code your design in there, whether or not you have the charm, but the charm lets you showcase it, and you can put on your backpack or your purse or, your rear view mirror in your car, and it can be like this animated display that you coded. And so there are designs. There's also designs that you can. So once you've coded as a design, you can actually share it. So the app facilitates kind of a social medium for people to kind of share their creations with each other as well, and like comment on other people's creations. So if you want to code your country's flag or a pineapple or a smiley face or whatever you want, and then you can kind of showcase like, hey, like I'm a tinker, I'm a coder, like, and that's cool.
Well, we should add that James did do a full podcast episode with Dora.
Sorry. Yeah.
Dora from ImagiCharm, who's the creator. And so if you are interested in that, feel free to go back and listen to that episode, or just pick one up, especially if you have a girl who is into coding and technology. So,
but if you're a boy, it does not cease to work. I just picked it up.
That's right. So. That's right. It's not, yeah.
It's not exclusive.
Let's talk about, you know what? James, we were breaking this down into hardware and software, and then I wrote books. Like, books are technically neither.
Yeah, I mean,
I guess we were thinking about it in the context of learning coding languages,
right?
And so let's talk for a minute about books.
Sure,
because it's kind of like a segue into software, I guess. We bought a lot of books over the years.
Mm-hmm.
People ask us about books all the time. I think also for Christmas presents and things like that. There are a lot of really great books out there for Scratch. For Scratch Junior, the book is pretty good. For Scratch, for Python, for JavaScript, for Minecraft modding, for iOS. I mean, there's just all sorts of good coding books.
Mm-hmm.
One of our favorites is called Invent with Python.
Yeah.
I forget the author's name off the top of my head. Do you have it?
No, I mean, I can find it.
He's super cool though. He
offers the text of the book for free on his website as well.
The book is for free. I like the book, the physical book, but it is free on his website, and so you can go check that out. And he's got a bunch of other cool books too, and is constantly coming out with new stuff. So
Al Swigart.
Yeah, that's right, Al Swigart. Shout out to you, Al.
Sorry,
that's who we should have on our show, James.
That's that.
Because Al is awesome.
He's gonna be on our show. You heard it here first.
But his books are really cool, and he gives them away for free, like we said. So highly, highly, highly recommend Al Swigart's books. But Amazon has a wide variety. We'll post a few books that we recommend in the show notes. Particularly for YouTube. But if you have any questions about books, certainly reach out to us. We own quite a few of them and have used a lot of them. Personally, we were talking about this before the show. My favorite book, probably the award goes to, I believe it's called Coding iOS Apps for Kids. I think I had it pulled up, but I do not see it anymore.
Yeah.
But Coding iOS Apps for Kids is pretty good. It really only has 2 or 3 projects, but that's because coding iOS apps is a fairly complicated thing. One thing I would look for when looking for a book, though, is how many projects does the book have?
Right.
And that's one thing that I really love about Al Swigart's books is like, he's just like, we're going to do projects. And then while we're doing the projects, I'm going to explain to you like what each piece of code does. And then you've got these other books that are like 90% syntax and like 3 or 4 projects.
Yeah.
And so, you know, to me, like talking about syntax and like talking through the syntax, I guess is useful. But as anyone knows, you really are going to learn through the projects. And, you know, I've taken classes where I learned the syntax of a language and you forget it. You just forget it because you haven't applied it anywhere. And so I would say that's my advice for parents and kids is like, get involved with the projects. Don't spend a ton of time sitting there like trying to figure out the syntax, because as you do projects, you're going to figure it out. Or take the approach like Al's books and like just do the projects and then kind of try to take time and think about it as you go. Probably the worst thing that anyone can do with these books is like literally just copy everything that the book does without like stopping to think about what they're doing, why they're doing it, and process that information. So that's
agreed.
My 2 cents there. So
yeah, right on. Well, I just want to agree with everything you said. Yeah. And I just really believe in supporting people who put stuff out there for free when they don't have to, because they put a ton of work into it. And, you know, to go back to Al, like he's just put out so much content. And it's really nice. One thing I will mention that we haven't mentioned up to this point, so we're going to start jumping into software. And so I'll say if you're trying to make your own Scratch game, you know, we have a ton of camps on that. And it's usually really popular. But there are a couple of channels on YouTube as well that help and that are resources. I think we'll probably have a separate episode just about YouTube channels that specifically focus on coding and in a way that makes a lot of sense. But one of those is Alvin Blocks, who's got a ton of subscribers based in the UK. But it's tough when I was looking up Roblox tutorials on YouTube, it was almost impossible to find anything coding related. It was like 99% people playing Roblox. so sometimes you have to be careful, and sometimes it's actually hard to find this stuff unless you have the links. So we'll be posting those. But Scratch is, you know, we've done a podcast on Scratch, so a lot of this stuff is a little bit circular with us, right? We talk about some topics several times because it's so important, but Scratch is just, I don't know that there's a better place to start your coding journey if you're 30 like me, or if you're younger, or even a little bit older. And regardless of how much time you spend in Scratch, it's just such a great foundational thing. And you can, it's drag and drop, so you just ignore syntax and you get into the nitty gritty of, you know, what is an if-then statement? What is an if-then-else statement? What is a variable? What is a list? How do you animate stuff? How do you get stuff to move from one part of the screen to another? How do you get parts of your project to talk to each other? All of those foundational principles that can be applied to all coding languages, you're going to get in Scratch. And literally, Griff Patch, one of the preeminent Scratchers, he created a ray traced project, which absolutely blew my mind. I still cannot get over that project. And it took about, I think it takes like 24 hours to render or something. But it's technically a ray traced program. Kind of blew my mind. So
well, next week we'll be diving into it a little bit more too, because our friend Rock Coder, who was sick last time we tried to interview him, he is feeling better. He's on the mend, and so we're gonna be trying to get him for the podcast next Friday. He's on the schedule at least, so hopefully he'll be up. Hopefully he'll be up to it. But he is such an expert as well in Scratch and provides so many insights. But again, going back to the original thesis of the episode, if you have a 9 to 14-year-old, you know, a lot of times, and I guess we talked about this also in the podcast, but like in a previous episode, but a lot of times these kids who are like 9 to 14, they're kind of like oh, I'm too cool for like a graphics based coding language. And so I'm just going to I'm going to try more advanced stuff. And that's cool. Like, I want you to try more advanced stuff, but I still feel like people give up on Scratch too fast.
Oh yeah.
And as a general rule in working with a lot of kids. And so I would just highly recommend that you encourage your kids to like really keep pushing themselves in Scratch, get involved with the community, and really try to build some stuff. Like take Rock Coder, for example. Again, we'll be talking to him next week, but like if you look up some of his projects, like the advanced level that you can get to in Scratch is off the hook. So don't give up on Scratch necessarily just because of age. I really think that the reason that you should move on from Scratch is mostly like experience based. Like if you feel like you've pretty much mastered it and you want to try to start tinkering with some other stuff. Look, I'm never going to stop anyone from tinkering. I'm never going to stop anyone from like grabbing a book and like learning how to do a Python project or whatever. I'm just saying don't give up on Scratch because like we're in our 30s and we appreciate Scratch, and there are people older and younger than us who really appreciate it. So like accept it for what it is, appreciate it for what it is, be grateful that it exists, and then we can kind of move on to the next language, the next project.
If I were in charge of Scratch, there is one change I'd make, and that I'd make like a super cool like dark mode. I think that's what I would do, because I think a lot of people do move on just because it looks like it's built for a kid, and so
yeah,
just a facelift in that direction.
Yeah, maybe like advanced mode. Yeah,
yeah.
There is Snap. Snap is like based on Scratch. I think they were kind of like projects that started about the same time. And oddly enough, like Snap, because it hasn't had as many updates over the years, it like still looks more technical, but they're basically the same.
Yeah, so, that's funny.
Anyway, all right, let's talk about Repl.it.
Another one, yeah. So Repl.it or Repl.it, yeah, it's a great resource. Basically, it's an IDE, meaning it's basically a virtual machine where you can run all sorts of coding languages. We're talking Python, Java, JavaScript, like any version of Python you can think of. It can save projects in the cloud. You're not going to crash your own computer, right? Like if something goes wrong, you don't have to worry about that. So there's a lot about that, and it's free. So that is another great thing.
Yeah, so like if you go to the Repl.it website, you'll see that like literally I don't want to say every coding language. I mean, probably iOS or Swift is excluded. I'm not sure exactly. I mean, they might. All I'm saying is they probably don't have the same emulators that you would get from coding in Swift on a Mac. What is it? Xcode. Yeah, Xcode is the software platform that you use on a Mac to code. So they don't have like quite the same interface, but like they're covering almost all languages. So I mean, I think there's still an option for Swift for the coding aspect of what you're going to do on your app. It just doesn't have like the interface aspects.
Right.
But in terms of like, okay, so you're going to code in Python, you're going to code in JavaScript. I think they probably have, your basic web languages. So it's just a lot of different like use cases that you can use Repl.it for as a beginner.
And you can share it with your friends. You can share it with your friends. They can see your projects. They can make edits as well if you give them permission.
Yeah, you can collaborate.
So the collaborative ability is pretty nice. That's one of the reasons Google Docs took off, is because you could edit like at the same time. And I don't know if you can edit at the same time, but I know that just being able to collaborate on projects really, I do think, moves the needle for people. So
yeah. Yeah, and one other one that I'll mention that just came to mind, I believe it's pen.io. Have you used this, James?
Mm-mm.
Is it pen.io?
Googling on the spot.
It's not Panda.io, but it's something like that. But it's really great because it's got like the HTML, the CSS, and the JavaScript, all three kind of built into one. So you can like build a website out as a test project without actually having to pay for hosting or anything like that.
Yeah.
So James, I'm going to look this up, and why don't you wrap things up?
Yeah. So I mean, here's the deal. Here's the deal, folks. If you ignore the whole rest of the podcast, know this, that like, oh, code.org, hello. Okay, so code.org is great. It's not, the only problem with code.org is it's not as like open to creativity and just like whatever you want to code. It's more like, here's some problems, kind of like math problems. You can solve them, and you got to go solve them. But they do, definitely help. I'd say,
well, like they have MIT App Inventor, which is well, and I think code.org has their own like little app inventor thing that you can tinker with as you get older. So
does have some resources.
I will say, like, sometimes we say, at least in our business, we'll be like, oh yeah, like code.org is for little kids to get like an introduction to coding. But the reality is code.org has a full curriculum. They want kids from like age 4 through 18, like working on their platform. They have a full curriculum. It's just like, we're not really super familiar with it because personally, I think it gets a little bit boring
and repetitive. So, but it's free, and that's a nice price. So, in summary, if there's something that your kid wants to do, they're interested in it, and it's on this list, I'd say go for it. And here's the thing with Arduino, with Raspberry Pi, with Makey Makey and Microbit, if they have a crazy project idea, they can make it happen, right? If I was thinking about creating a volcano project where I make a volcano out of like cardboard and it's kind of this adventure, and there's a little story that's tied to each person around the volcano. Like, you can do whatever you can imagine, and I think that's the beauty of it, is there's tons of creativity, artistic as well as mathematical, and to solve the problems of the future, it helps to just start now. And so, to review, you got Arduino, you got Raspberry Pi, you've got Makey Makey, you've got Microbit, anything that allows for tinkering. Robotics, you got the ImagiCharm. You got books, which we're going to put in our links in the show notes. You got Repl.it, you've got Scratch. There's really no shortage, at least in 2020 and in the future.
There's so many places you could go to like learn
different opportunities that I did not have when I was 9, nor when I was 14. I mean, I bought a computer programming program from Paper Out money, for those of you old enough to know what a paper route is. And I gave up because it was not user-friendly. And it was basically impossible to use. And but not. But now, it's different.
That college was the only way. I will jump in really quick. So the website is actually codepen.io. Just so everyone knows, it's a really intuitive platform. It's got HTML, CSS, and JS, and you can just code all three, and then it's like, oh, there's my website. So it's pretty cool. Guys, one word of caution really quick is this age group, 9 to 14, is a tricky age group. And I've come across it 100 times since I've been teaching kids to code. And what I'll say is a lot of kids come into our classes, like an iOS class, and they're like, I have this idea for an app. I really want to build this app. And this is kind of the age group where they start getting these like high and mighty dreams of what they're going to do. And they take the class and they build some projects, and they're like, whoa, that's actually like really tough, right? And it can be a little bit like depressing for them to realize like that some of the, like, to build a big project is going to be pretty challenging. And so I guess my word of caution is like, just keep tinkering, like just keep playing around. And that's that's kind of goes back to my word of caution previously about Scratch and like not giving up on it. Is like, you don't need to push so hard, because a lot of these apps and a lot of these ideas that we have are built by teams, are built collaboratively, are built by a team of 5 people to build this. You know, they have a designer and they've got a coder and they've got an iOS interface guy, you know, and they've got a lot of different parts going into it. So we can't allow these kids ages 9 to 14 to like kind of fall by the wayside and like get depressed about the potential that you know, how hard it might be. We've got to keep them tinkering and keep them playing. And if they do get frustrated or bored with one platform or one coding language or one project, just, this is why we have a list here. You know, if they're working on a Python project and they start getting frustrated by those, be like, all right, let's take a break and let's do some Raspberry Pi. Let's just tinker with that and let's build a little computer. You know, it's just, keep it fun, keep it light, so that they don't get discouraged on it, and so that they realize like there's a lot of joy to be had through the tinkering. So
yeah, well, amen to that. I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense, and sounds like great parenting advice. I'll file that away in my brain. I appreciate it. Thanks for joining us. Feel free to give us a positive review on Apple Podcasts. That really goes a long way. We have a YouTube channel. We're releasing kid-friendly game reviews all the time. We are, constantly releasing stuff on our blog. We're going to be posting on-demand classes shortly. So there's a lot of stuff that we're doing. If you have any recommendations for us, please shoot us an email, james@coderkids.com, jeff@coderkids.com. We'd be happy to implement whatever kind of suggestion that you have. So thanks so much, and until next time.
Thank you.